Another round of applause for the cast. As is the tradition with our stage readings, we always have a post-reading discussion. Let me call Chelsea to lead the post-reading discussion. But as she comes up, I'll introduce you to the cast. Towekile Sebanda. Joy Chipiza. Caroline Mashinga Zimbizi. Musa Saruro. Anthony Tongani. Kevin Hansen. Takuza Martinenga. And last but not least, Charmaine Mujeri.
Good afternoon. So, our post-production discussion, we'll just have a few questions for the audience in relation to the play, as well as questions that the audience might have for the director and the actors in regards to their characters. So firstly, the play Widows had a lot of plot lines and themes. So the first question would be, what themes or plot lines struck out for you as you watched the reading?
Don't answer all at once.
Okay, maybe somebody in the cast would like to open the floor for us and then give the audience an idea to think, a time to think about what they might want to talk about.
No, there was someone in the audience who wanted to
Oh,
say something
sorry.
just now.
I missed, sorry.
There at the back. The one who's looking at the back.
Hi,
Sandra.
Okay, I'll ask a question.
Yeah.
Why did you choose this play in particular, that was written by a Chilean guy living in exile in America, and an American guy set in Greece in 1940, whatever it was? What made you choose it?
Well, it definitely wasn't because of his nationality why I chose the play. For me, the play spoke to me in the sense that it painted the picture of human suffering in a country that is torn apart by war. And even though it's post-war, there's still ravages of it, and people are still trying to make sense of their lives. And for me, it resonated with me in the sense that these characters were quite human, that they were going about a daily struggle, even though their experience was quite unique, was quite different from mine, but it still spoke to me in a way.
I like the fact that there was such a strong female influence in the play. And the women were so strong.
Yes.
Very interesting. Very
Yeah.
fantastic. So well done.
Thank you.
Kevin, your character, explain him to us. He's a bit of a douche.
What was that? Why do you say he's a bit of a douche?
Yeah, he wasn't very nice or human. I don't think anyone.
Which one are you talking about? The lieutenant?
Yes.
Well, he personified the military, I think, and particularly a very black and white stance of the military. His role, I think, is mainly to. He's the old school. Nothing will change. This is the way it is. We have the green and we have the dust, and never the two shall mix. And if they do, then the dust just covers over the green and everything retreats back into a state of pre-civilization.
But the fact that you were supposed to be subservient to Musa's character was just like. Wow.
Yeah, but I think he is supposed to be, but he comes from this area basically, and he knows the secrets of this area better. And so this captain, he suspects this captain has arrived with dirt under his fingernails from his last post, and so he can use that as a tool of a manipulation, and he wants to be captain himself, but he's definitely a bit of a loose cannon. So the chances of him ever being made a captain are probably zero, because he would just shoot everyone basically. Yeah. So he's frustrated by the lack of promotion, and so he has issues with the present captain.
Yes.
So just a question for you as well, Kevin. Are there any redeeming qualities of the character that you were playing?
The lieutenant?
Did you like him at all?
No, not really.
But as an actor, it's not your job to like the character regardless of what an idiot he is.
Well, yeah, no, of course it's fun to play it. But yeah, I think he is kind of the baddie in the play, in a sense. Or not, he's not really a baddie, but I think he is just the guy, he just doesn't want to change anything. He's stuck with that. But also he's subservient to, one of the things that we talked about in rehearsal was also this idea of, people can do incredible evil socially, but then can be an incredible family man, for instance, on the side. And I think the lieutenant potentially is that sort of person. So for him, it's the 14 families, 400 years. So he'll live and die for that. And he probably, at Christmas time, he's probably hearty and drinks and makes jokes, and he's one of the guys, he's one of the family. But when it comes to the community, whatever, he'll just put a bullet through someone's head. If that's what's necessary, then it means nothing to him in that sense. And I think that's something that we felt. One of the themes, anyway. Coming back to the themes.
I really enjoyed that. Thanks, guys. I wanted to find out what the rehearsal process was like for the actors and the director, and the similarities you got from the world of the play to the world that you live in, your reality. What are the
Great
similarities?
The rehearsal process was tough. It was long, but I think it was, yes. But I
With
think
a
it was
few notes, with a couple of
notes. But I think it was necessary for us to totally understand what the world was about. Because some people may say that it is relevant to a lot of things that are happening today within many societies in many countries
African countries.
that are dotted across the globe.
Look at America.
But what I can say is, I think what Sandra said, or somebody said about the role of women, it was you saying, said the role of women was so powerful that it shook an army, because the captain is his army kind of thing, and it shook an entire army, that these women were so united at the end to try and fight for their own. And it also kind of brought out some issues in terms of like the socio-economic situation that they're in, and also the political aspects of everything, and how sometimes your social status can also affect your political status. Like one of the things that I mentioned it during the rehearsal was the way Sophia was mentioning that you whores and you bitches, you'd prefer to go and sell at the market, but meanwhile your husbands are missing. So at the end of the day, what are you fighting for? Who are you fighting for? And what future do you have for your kids? So those were kind of the things that came out during rehearsal, and also came out as we were reading. For myself personally. Yeah. Yes.
Well, he wasn't speaking for everyone.
Yeah, I think just to add on to Moose's point, I think there's a catalyst in the play that sparks the action. That's the body starting to float down the river, which is never really answered as to who is actually putting the bodies in. I think we sort of felt probably the lieutenant is the one chucking the bodies in the river in order to try and upset the captain so that he could get rid of the captain, so maybe he could take over his position. But actually the result of his action, which was completely selfish, triggered an entirely different kind of reaction from the community. And these women, like Musa was saying, who were so quiet for so long, they've been oppressed. They're not doing anything about it. They're still just going ahead, and they would rather not say anything and be safe than stand up and make a stand and then have all the problems that entails. And then once these bodies start coming down, and Sophia's reaction to that then triggers all these things, which leads to them, depending on how you think the play ends, potentially sacrificing their lives for the sake of finally standing up for themselves, really, I guess. But it was sort of indirect in a way, I guess, as to why that even started. I mean,
Probably to respond to the relevancy of the story to our situation. The
As
way-
actors sitting here in the country.
the way you saw it relevant to you, it's exactly the same with us.
Ask Kevin about his character. You as the other military person, what can you tell us about your character? You seemed a lot nicer than Kevin's character, but you still had to
Surprisingly, there was quite a huge debate. Yes, it was quite a huge debate as to whether the guy was a good guy or a bad guy, because he's spilled a lot of blood before. He spilled a lot of blood before, but maybe when he came to this part of town, he was trying to create some good. But at the end of the day, what I felt was now happening was that the lieutenant was picking at this other side of the captain that he probably has heard of and known, and tried to bring that out to aid his situation and to try and get the whole community under control by going or tapping back into what the captain had done before. Because I mean, the captain has mowed down an entire square of people in his previous posting. And yeah, and he's willing to do it for the sake of peace, which is what he says to the father, and says that if there's any means to get towards peace, I'll take it, and God will forgive me afterwards. Yeah, so I think he's in between. He's 50-50. Yeah.
Yeah. What did you find that the themes that popped up for you during the rehearsal process?
Well, a lot of them popped out for us. But for us, we looked at the river and how it represented a lot of things. It represented the endlessness of time, but it also represented the place between the living and the dead.
Yeah.
And also for us, it was this idea of the dehumanization of people, and even how violent childhoods would actually then build people who become people like the captain, people like the lieutenant. I mean, throughout the play, we notice how there's always a story of young boys and how they are brutalized by being introduced to violence, to war and violence.
Maybe just 2 points. Okay, one, I'd like to commend the director for the usual brave choices of having one actor play different roles. That was splendid. And brave. Maybe for the actors, did you face any challenges in your research for the different characters, or were there any lessons learned? Maybe you can share, if any.
Zaza basically just whipped everybody into shape. Very nicely, very politely. Well done, yeah. Please. Let's try that again, but give me more. I have a couple of notes. That's how she always does.
That's how she does
And they were never just two. Yeah, don't be rude. Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah.
Charmaine was always my way is the best way, right?
Oh no, not at all. She'd let us rant and rave, and then she's like, okay, so here's the final decision. Yeah, this is But I've got a few notes.
Couple.
But I think
couple.
with that though, she made it a bit of an introspective process, like watching her and working with her, where if you're playing multiple characters, she asks you to dig deep and find, because we all have different facets about us, and she made us dig deep and see like what within my layers connects to said character or this character. So it ended up being also just A great lesson in a great week of like self-discovery. And that was pretty great. Thanks, Zaza.
Okay, a question for the audience. As you watched the stage reading today, which character did you empathize with, if any? Which character, not the actor, which character was your favorite and why?
I love the old woman because she, for me, was the matriarch of all these other women. And the fact that she lost. Not you, Charmaine, the old
Yeah,
woman.
of course.
Yes, I know. Well done, you played it well. That's what I'm trying to say.
Zaza.
Oh, okay. But the fact that you could empathize with her because she'd lost her husband, her father, and her son. And she thought they were still alive, but we all knew that they were dead. And because of that, she had my heart beating. Yes, she was the anchor for all the other women. Yeah.
Any other characters you empathize with?
Joyce, the little girl. Joyce, the little girl. Joyce.
Yeah.
Why?
She was just very sweet. The other woman was kind of hard and kind of, you know what, don't mess with me. Yeah, but the little girl with the scarf on was very sweet. What was her name? Fidelia, yeah.
And maybe to bring it back to the cast, which character did you like? Not yourself. I know Charmaine already. I know Charmaine has somebody else in mind.
Well, that eliminates like 4 characters
Yes,
for me
that's
already.
okay.
I think for me, no, not the captain is your guy, right? Yeah, I'd choose the lieutenant because he just stayed true to himself. He didn't try to be anyone other than the person that he was. Military man all the way. Like, let's kill them if they don't want to dance to the truth.
Okay. Joy?
Yeah, I like the lieutenant as well. Well, you know, he was.
See? Nothing. It's okay. You think you're good?
Okay,
Why did you like him?
Well, I think you know, same thing. He was very, you know, set on what he wanted, but also on the other hand, I like the captain. When they said there was a debate on whether he was a good guy, I thought he was a good guy. I think right up to the last second, he still thought it was possible to actually change things, to actually have a democracy, to have the people, you know, choose what they want and have, you know, a good back and forth with the people. But unfortunately, the lieutenant, you know, but yeah.
Yes. But did you hear his speech to the people in the very beginning?
Did you hear his take on
democracy?
Thank
you.
Okay, he had a warped idea of what democracy was, but he was moving in the right direction, you know, like he was a little off, but like he just needed a little bit of like guidance,
Nudge.
and yeah, and I feel like if it wasn't for the bodies and stuff like that, you know, and the lieutenant being like, oh, you know, I think in the end the captain would have gotten to some form of democracy.
I would say, like, I don't know that he's good as maybe he wanted to be a hero for a change. Like everywhere else, everyone hates him, and he knows he's hated. And I think he just wanted to figure out maybe here I can forge something where people will look up to me instead, you know, and then maybe I can have something nice in my legacy of blood. People will find I can find something where at least people will esteem me, because it's really hard to esteem murder. And you know, like the one thing that stuck with me was when he said he stood over that kid. And I mean, how do you stand for an hour and watch someone die? There's like a disconnect in his humanity. Like, it's like he's trying to find humanity, but he doesn't know how to connect with it anymore, you know, because like, you know how you talked about dehumanizing, but like, how do you stand there like a kid, okay, watching anyone, but a kid literally bleached, you know how he said the blood soaked into his boots, you know, that's how much blood, how does a normal person stand there, you know? So, and then like even your question about which character, to some extent for me, I actually just loved all the characters as a whole, because like even the idea of the corpses not having faces was fascinating to me, because for me it's just what just continued to stick in my mind was the idea that they are all of us, and they are all our husbands, and they are all our brothers, and they're all our, they're all our everythings, because everyone can claim claim them, and no one can claim them.
Yeah.
So in a way, the same way they kept coming down the river, you're forced to do something. So you're forced to either be a passive, like I like your other character as well. I just can't remember the line. It was something about being an observer, and but you're also an observer to other people's pain, to other people's suffering, and you're not necessarily part of it. And so you don't want to glorify your position by saying, this is what I saw, and take anything away from what they're going through. So I feel like each character is a very real someone that they can be as nameless as the corpses, because you can see, I could see different people I've read about, I've heard about, some people I know, and you're like, me? That one could be me. Do I want to, what would I do? If it was me, would I stand up? Would I do what she did? And it's hard. That she really, for me, her character, the older woman, represents for me that idea that in spite of war and peace, or in peace times, there's still that one thing that's true. You can't change right and wrong. Those things are constant. And at some point, it might be washed out or hidden, or you might be afraid, but truth remains truth, whether we acknowledge it or not.
The captain has an interest. There's just one little paragraph I found interesting about it. I can't remember your lines, but he just talks about how things don't change all at once. It's a step at a step process, and I think that's one of the hardest things, is that the massive things have happened. There's been a war, and it's going to take time for democracy to happen.
Yeah.
And people have got their set ways of doing things and their set ideas about things, but it doesn't. So in that moment, I think he just speaks such wisdom but then he's stuck between these two different worlds. And how do you really make that much of a difference, other than patience, and everyone's got to give a little for things to improve? And of course, it's extremely difficult. Sophia doesn't want to give anything. She wants revenge. She wants some answers. And he's yes, it's so complicated. It's just there's just no easy way coming out of that kind of situation.
I quite liked Castoria's brother. Yeah, no, but that's why. You're not supposed to see him, and he has very few lines. But in that short amount of time, you see that he's the one who he's a puppeteer. And I think it was just a great showcase that a lot of times the people who actually are in power and who are making the decisions are the people that we don't see. They are the faceless men. So I found that very interesting.
And they're always disconnected from the people that they're actually purporting to serve.
Yeah.
So they actually cannot feel for the people when the decisions that they make actually affect the people. And I think that one of the other things that we talked about was this idea of democracy, and how do you usher in a democracy when there's still some issues from the past that have not been dealt with. I mean, there are 36 men who had been disappeared, and the army and the ruling class didn't want to say anything about it. They just expected the women to move on and say, okay, the war is over, we're moving right ahead, life is going ahead. And how does that happen?
Libraries.
What I love is that the women refuse to move on.
Yeah, especially Sophia. Sophia is the one who refused to move on. Everyone else was like, okay, we'll just go on, and maybe at some point they'll give us our men if we behave, if we go about our daily business. But yeah,
Is that what women normally do? Is just behave, just to make things okay? Yeah.
They've got no choice.
Yeah.
It would seem so.
And
But these women refused. They fought at the end. They had their guns.
I like in Alexandra's little speech when she's going on about when they took my husband away. they said to behave, and I behaved then. And now they've taken my son away. What am I supposed to do? Keep on behaving? Doesn't look like they're stopping. Even if I do whatever it is they want me to do, they never stop doing what they do. They keep on doing what they do. So, at some point we have to do something as well. We have to step up. We have to speak out.
So it's quite a rural play, and it's set in a very remote part of the country that's quite distant and quite difficult to access mentally and emotionally, and just in terms of like physical access getting there. How is it engaging with that as actors and performers and people who come from presumably not very rural contexts, or who are not living in very rural contexts at the moment? Because it's very interesting to me that Ariel Dorfman felt the need to write this play with a narrator who's not from that context, and he has to mediate it through somebody else, whereas lots of people write plays that don't need a mediator to get to the story. And I think one of the huge disconnects in the world at the moment is the urban-rural divide, and one of the big issues, whether you're in Ethiopia or Burundi or Rwanda or DRC, is that there's kind of this urban ferment and protest, but they can't connect it to the rural areas, and when it happens in the rural areas, you're shot down on the riverbank because there's no way of kind of bypassing that. Yeah, I guess.
An aspect that is mainly centered around the rural.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what my question was, but one of the things that made me think a lot, and one is the fact that it was a very rural play, and I think Ariel Dorfman captured it really well.
Yeah.
But he still felt the need to kind of mediate it through the narrator, and think about what it means to have these voices and be representing these people who he's not. And yeah, I mean, I think it connects with a lot of really pertinent issues in a lot of countries today. How to connect between two quite different struggles.
I guess I can attest it to Zimbabwe, for example. One of the major fighting points between the political parties in this country is who can get the rural vote, because the rural vote is the majority vote in this country. And once you can get that vote, you've got an upper hand in terms of who's going to be leading the country. And within this play, it feels like the economy of the land that the play is set in is derived from the land, because a lot of the stuff that the lieutenant speaks about is how the families have been part of the land. They know how to grow it, and everything is there, and the grass is green. And once you get this dust, and the captain also talks about how the country's got so much potential to blossom and bloom, but it's arid and there's so much dust, is because that's where the economy of the land of that country is centered upon. It's centered upon the land. Once you are able to unlock the potential of the land and unlock the potential of the people who are tilling that land, then it becomes fruitful. So I guess what I felt as an actor when performing or reading the entire play was it's not so different from where we are as in this country, because this country we also thrive because of the land, and the land has been a pertinent issue for over 30 years now, and it's still something that is very fragile to a lot of people, because the land, some people believe that the land is still not theirs, and there's so many aspects to that. And I feel that the play was tackling some of those kind of issues. I don't know if I answered your question, Helen.
May I as well? Yeah. Well, as it's a question as to how we felt we were able to access like a rural sort of point of view, and for me personally, I don't know about everybody else, it wasn't really about it being set in a rural place, because it wasn't a rural story, it was a human story. So it wasn't really about putting yourself in any sort of rural setting, or it was just these people are going through something similar, something that other people in the world are going through. So like whether it was rural or not was really just what environment you were thinking of, whether you were walking into a hut or not in your head, but really it wasn't like the center, it wasn't the core of it. It was just about their suffering and their struggle, and that was something that was quite easy to relate to. If I can use that word, easy. Yes, it was easier to relate with that.
For me, one of the
Yeah.
I was just going to say one of the things that I got out of the kind of rural city thing, and it came up quite directly in the play, is the city's a place to hide, and the countryside, everyone knows everyone's business, and so the issues are really on the nose kind of thing. So you can't. It's very clear. This is the green. This is the dust. These are the poor people. These are the rich people, and then it's Emmanuel, his goal is to get out and to run away to the city, and in a sense, and the same with Cecilia, her goal is to get away from this rural place where everyone knows her business, get into the city where she can now disappear and hide, and so in a sense be sinful. That sense of kind of like that you can hide in a big place with lots of people and lots of noise, but you can't do that in a small town. And so in this kind of village area, they're forced to deal with it. But as you say, sorry? Yeah, you have to. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But as you say, the narrator acts as this character who is now obviously living in a big city somewhere. He's kind of it's just very close. You get the sense of he's in a bit of a ghetto or a poor part of that big city as well. But somehow he's trying to tell the story to people who are in like a big city setting about the small village that he comes from. And maybe, as you say, he's this kind of, somehow he's this bridge, but at the same time he's a cynical bridge because he doesn't think that they care. You just sit there flicking through in different channels with your different state of mind, and who cares about these people? And I think this is why he keeps reinforcing it. But it's not about me. It's not about me, and it's not about just this village. This is this story is about humanity. Please don't try and pin me down to my name, which country I come from, because then you'll just say, oh, well, typical Chileans. They all like that. That's what they do. It's not our problem. Chileans must sort themselves out, and that's not what it's about. This is humanity.
And on the idea of the narrator and this idea that he's in exile and he's separated from the source of life, from his country, and how we even talked about at the beginning how he's haunted by this story of what is happening in his country, and he's waiting for all these foreign things to die down in order to access this story. But at the same time, looking at the landscape of where he is, he feels that disconnect from his own home country so vividly. And we ended up then talking about this issue of exile, whether there's political exile, whether there's economic exile, and what informs that, and how, okay, maybe I'm moving into dangerous territory, and how sometimes a person might leave their country because they fear for their life, but sometimes they may leave their country because they cannot actually make a living in their own country. And that's also another form of exile, and dealing with that sort of alienation where even if you come back to your country, people still say you're not from here. And if you're in that country that you're living in, that you're in exile, they say you're a foreigner. So always costing in between those places.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
Last. Oh, 3 hands, and then you can go ahead.
Yeah, just to go back to the performance issues. 2 things. Hats. I noticed that a lot of you were using hats, interchanging with characters. Just a comment in terms of how that was helping your performance. Like, in the case, if you wore the wrong hat, would it bring out the wrong character?
Speaking of funny voice.
And then the second one is, when you were sitting down, how did that contribute to the performance? Because I noticed even when you were sitting down, you did it differently. Like, some left the scripts on the and others were doing different things during that. So just comments on that.
Could be.
The issue with the hats, it was just a costume helping each actor get into character, being able to differentiate between characters. Let's say Captain was wearing a black hat, and the other character was Teresa. He had a hat. So I think basically wearing the hat would help him be able to characterize and know that this is Teresa, this is Captain, I think.
Yes. Yeah, it was. I think it helped in terms of knowing that, for example, the female floppy hat made me go into that character of the old woman, and then wearing the beret gave that transition to become the captain. And then, should I just answer the sitting down and do you want to do it?
I was just going to add on to what you're saying.
Okay,
about
great,
hats.
go ahead.
Different people wear different clothes, and different clothes make you feel a certain way.
Yeah.
So I think like with the captain, or when I wore my hat, it gives you power. There's authority within that, because when you're wearing the hat, it's your rank, and we're all wearing like different colored hats, because each person has their rank, and it's a reminder of where your place in society is. The sitting down will be passed down.
To Kevin.
I think it was pretty practical actually as to whether you had your script on the. Well, certainly for me, I think it just I knew I had to get from here to there with my scripts, and I couldn't leave it. I think some people were lucky enough to have their own stand the whole way through the show. They never had to move, so they could just leave their script there. And some of us were changing levels, so if you're changing levels, then you had to take your script with you. So it was really just a practical thing. I don't think there was any.
Levels, I think it's quite a dramatic thing, the changing of the levels. Because I like using levels more than I direct, so it was great.
For me, like when we took the script and actually in the part of the play where we actually read the script while we were sitting down, it's more about sort of like, not exactly, I don't want to say detaching yourself from the scene, but actually like we were the voice of the women, like the voices that Fidelia had in her head. So it really didn't have a face. So it was supposed to be just these voices she's hearing in her head. So sitting down and reading that script while sitting down, that's what I felt like. Because you'll start wondering, is it Fidelia talking, is it Yanina talking to Fidelia, or is it Teresa talking to Fidelia? But if it's like faceless and just a voice, you can actually, like, it gives you that psychology, like maybe it's voices in her head.
Okay, more like a visual aid.
Yeah.
All right. She gonna be the last one. Okay. In the words of the narrator, do I really have to name the country where a river flows and an old woman waits? Do you really need me to name it? I think this is where we'll wrap up with our theme of universality and universalism. Ooh, that word. And we'll thank our director Zaza Mchemwa for giving us this opportunity to work with her. Thank you guys. Thank you. And we thank the audience too for coming through and experiencing this play with us. And we hope to see you again in the upcoming production.